All right, man. Well, thanks again for doing this. I know this is what episode 8, and I had to take a few weeks hiatus because just kind of got backed up. But so this week, the disaster artist and the room we're talking about
Yep.
the lovely Tommy Wiseau. So
So as you'll see, I actually I don't know if you could tell, but I made the color of my room here that like weird ugly green tint that he did for the movie poster.
oh god, the cover like
Yeah, I don't know if you could like tell or if you were like curious as to why it looks like green in here. Like that's the reason is like I have all my lights set to the green tint.
okay. I actually couldn't read. I did notice that like your cameras were off, but like I thought it was just something up with your camera. But like no, like but I like the effort. That's much better than what I'm able to do right now. I'm stuck with interior.
Boring
Just
white
standard.
walls.
Yeah,
What the
it yeah, man. I don't have anything yet. I'm still waiting on a few paychecks, so but eventually I'll try to get something together.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we got to make these more dynamic if people are going to look at the visuals, which
Yeah.
most of them I think will. But anyways,
All right. So,
room.
yep, the room. So, first off, tell me the first time you saw the room, or even how did you hear about the room?
Oh man, I was waiting for this question. Here we go.
Mhm.
So, despite what many might think, I am not an avid Room fan. I did not see it back in like 2003 when it premiered or something like that. I mean, in 2003 I was like 5 or 6 or something like that. So if I had saw The Room at 6 years old, I probably would have been mentally scarred. Um, I saw it much later. I think it was 2017. So again, not even that long. This was like way after its cult following had like already developed. I was very late to the game. I saw oh geez, here we go. I saw a YouTube video from PewDiePie. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. Just
Maybe
kidding.
once or twice.
But yeah, so PewDiePie made a I guess a movie review video about it. And I remember, like I had always loved crappy movies and just like movies that like tried to be something that they clearly weren't. And like they were just kind of fun to point and laugh at. And this movie was clearly no different. So when I saw this and I was just like, I just had to jump on board. So I don't know. I watched that video like at least twice. And I was just like sitting there and like Trabant laughing to myself. Um, and eventually I found out that you can find it sometimes on YouTube. Occasionally it'll get taken down and then re-uploaded by somebody else. So this was during one of those like hiatus times where it was just sort of chilling on YouTube, not doing anything. It had like 3 views. But it was the full movie.
Mhm.
I had looked up, like little clips here and there, like the, flower shop scene and all that. Like, hi, doggy.
Hi,
Nice,
doggy.
you're my favorite
Perfect
customer. Yeah.
customer. Thanks a
So,
lot. Bye.
yeah. So it's really interesting because I think a lot of people who have seen The Room at all haven't seen the full movie. They've seen like the compilations on YouTube. And
Mhm.
so usually when they watch the movie for the first time, if they've seen clips already, they're like, "Oh, this is where this comes in. This is where that comes. Oh, this is where this scene is." I thought that the flower shop scene was the first scene in the entire movie.
It
It's
does.
not.
It does sound like it. Like, oh, it's okay, just getting flowers for Lisa, but like, no, it's hi, babe.
Hi, babe. Yeah.
Hi,
Oh my
babe.
god, dude, it's just so funny. So yeah, so the first time that I saw it, I was just like alone in my room, just chilling, looking up Room compilations for that swift release of dopamine, and then I found the full movie, and I was like, fuck it, whatever. I'm not doing anything. Um, and I I at least watched it like 2 more times after that. Not like consecutively, but at least like a couple more times that weekend. And then I showed it to my family, and that's when all hell broke loose because my mom was like on the floor, like begging me to fucking explain this plot to her because she had no fucking idea what was going on.
It's just so out there in terms of just like you want to appreciate any effort, but just the fact that like the dialogue is just so clunky, and then like you just have random scenes in there, like the two couple just like I can't remember their names, but they just go in on the couch and they're just like for no reason, or like even like that Michelle and Mike, I totally blocked out their names, and then I got the test results back. I definitely have breast cancer.
Breast cancer. Yep. No, it's a plot twist. You don't understand. It's very integral to the story. Oh my God. So I don't know if I don't want to like take up too much time with these, but I have like 1,000,001 room fun facts. So as long as we're on the topic of like Michelle and Mike, two characters that very clearly did not need to be in the movie. The character Mike was played by a guy named Scott Holmes. But when crediting the movie, Tommy Wiseau forgot his name. So he just put him credited as Mike Holmes and had to change it later on. So the first cut of The Room actually has his name in as Mike Holmes.
Yeah, that honestly seems like a Tommy move, and honestly, he's got a terrible, terrible time remembering American names. Like,
Right.
did you actually know the character Mark wasn't supposed to be Mark? It was supposed to be Matt after Matt Damon.
Yep. Mark Damon.
Yeah, Mark Damon. Did you? No, because I've read the Disaster Artist and like the novel, and there was a chapter in there where Tommy and Mark both watched The Talented Mr. Ripley, and
Yep.
he got really inspired to like, okay, I want to start making movies, or like I want to try to do my own thing, and he just got so connected with that character. He named the character Mark, but like wanted to name Matt after Matt Damon, but just totally dropped the ball.
I just think it's so funny. And yeah, actually, so it took me a while, and usually it does with specific movies that get recommended to me. I had read the Disaster Artist book, and Greg Sestero, the guy that plays Mark, specifically referenced The Talented Mr. Ripley so many times. And so it was on my watch list for the longest time. And I finally got around to watching it earlier this year. Definitely not a mistake. That movie really hits, especially the ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's supposed to be that kind of outsider, like kind of like slowly going into a tragedy sort of film, but like he's also kind like a sociopath, but not sociopath at the same time.
Mhm.
Like it's tricky. Like like that film's an interesting character study, but definitely one of Matt Damon's best performances.
For sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah, what about you? When was the first time you saw The Room or like ever heard of it?
I can't remember when I first heard of it, but I remember being in a film class, like a film 101 class, maybe in 2014. I think it was 2014 or 2015.
Was this English 217 at
Mhm.
UD?
Yep. So it was one of those classes, and I think
Leach?
no, it wasn't with Tom Leach. It was with a different professor.
Oh, okay.
But I remember, I can't remember. I think it was just around. It happened to be around that time, but I think it was for one of our projects. We had to do a scene breakdown, and there was a part of me that wanted to do the rooftop of the room because I had seen some of the clips. I'm just like, this would be hilarious to do, but
Yeah.
I was with a partner, and I didn't want to like screw her over because at the time it was like, again, it was just a cult movie. It didn't really have like the significant. It wasn't like mainstream because the Disaster Artist hadn't come out at the time. This was this was 3 years ago before it came out. So I'm like, no, I'm not gonna screw this person over. So like, we ended up doing The Departed. But
Okay.
but at the time in 2014, I had not seen the film. The first time I think I've seen it was in 2015, and I watched a riff tracks of it in the cinema. Like I went to like I went to like that Cinemark near Christiana. Went there,
Uh-huh.
and it was a full theater too. like it was just like one of those like one-time showings of the room, and it was a full theater, and it was just like them doing like a riff tracks of the room, and I'm like, okay, I know what this movie's kind of about, and like but I haven't seen like the full movie, and I was exactly like that. I just saw a compilation, so I finally sat down and watched it. I was just like, what the hell is going on here? But everybody was having a great time. Like, and honestly, that was like my first kind of like insight to be like, okay, this is the follow, like this is what like a cult movie kind of should be. And like the only other cult movie I'd seen like that up to that point was like Rocky, so like Rocky
Yeah.
Horror. So
Yeah,
it
it
was.
gets compared to Rocky a lot, and I think that has to do a lot with shadow casting
Mhm.
because, and I didn't know this. This was told to me. Apparently, Rocky's shadow casting started out the same way that the Room's shadow casting is now, um, where like you just had regular screenings of the cult movie, and people would just go full on in costume and just do the whole movie in front of people, you know. And then it actually became like like legitimate shows that you could go to where people would get paid to shadow cast Rocky. Or I don't think the Room has reached that type of status yet. I think that Rocky is a little bit more timeless. The Room is recent enough where people are just starting to get into it. Maybe I'm wrong. I've only been to one actual screening of The Room. But yeah, I remember like when the football scenes came on, like everybody was like throwing footballs around and of course, you know, obviously the spoons. So
Spoons.
spoons.
I want to do that, but then at the same time, I feel like a dick to like to the what is it? The movie attend like the why am I blanking on their names? Like the guys that work in movie theaters. I'm blanking on the ushers, whatever, when they have to clean up after it goes
Yeah,
so
no, I
bad.
know movie theater workers. Let's just call them that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
guys do
yeah,
great work. Thank you so much for your service, picking up all
yeah.
that fucking popcorn
I
and
know.
filled
We're
drinks, whatever
we're
else.
we're total dicks.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I mean, I've participated in it. I feel like any theater knows what it's getting into. That's what it is. I feel bad for the movie theater workers who have no idea what they're getting into when they show The Room, and then it's just like, oh, now I have to clean up all these fucking plastic spoons. At
yeah.
least it's not metal spoons, because metal spoons
Well, like I just
that
imagine just like darting them in the back of the head, like back of someone's head, just like it just like it's just like it just feels like darts at that point.
yeah, I think I came very ill prepared to that screening because I had no spoons of my own, but luckily it was a full house. And I just went by myself. I was just like, fuck it, you know, I'm going to this thing. Tommy was there. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to this. I sat down and some dude just like had, you know, a shitload of plastic spoons. It was just like, here, dude. I'm like, hell yeah, are you kidding me? Anyways.
Jesus. Like, well, that's the kind of screening I want to go to because the Rift Tracks one, I didn't have that, but like because it
Mhm.
was just people commentating on it. They weren't actually shadow casting, but like I want to go to an event like that. So it won't happen out here, but I would love to be able to at least like hold some sort of home screening and just watch it at my place or like maybe like get something because I have the room file. I totally like ripped it, but like there's no other way for me to see it because they don't have the Blu-ray or anything out here. So I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
trying to make that following out here.
Oh my God, that would be funny. You know what? You really should, because I feel like nobody over there has seen it. Maybe like one person.
Yeah.
Uh,
It depends. I mean, like because while they didn't have shadow casting, they were doing Rocky screenings like some time ago here. So there's at least an idea of cult followings and it's mostly with the expats, like the foreigners here. But like I would like to just kind of get the reactions of Cambodians because like it would just be so strange and the thing is I don't think they would understand that like this from our point of view it's a comedy because like it's a second language even the idea of like that sort of melodrama like it's kind of played up over the top sort of cinema is very popular in Asian culture so like I don't think they would realize that we're like this is like maybe they understand it's done poorly but it's just we view this as a comedy this is not well done so I'm just wondering
I
if they'll click off on it because it's such it's such kind of like a subtextual thing that we make fun of it.
Dude, I will say, if they take it seriously, I would love to see that type of reaction because I don't think I've ever seen anyone take The Room seriously.
Mhm.
And that just would be a completely different beast to anything
Yeah.
we've seen.
Honest, I'm just curious, but I would love to do that. I just want to like I just want to get a group of people together and like I want to do that with my friend, one of my friends, like because she's really into a close friend of mine right now. She's into movies too, and I just want to be like, we gotta watch The Room one night. Like we need to get like a group of people. Like, but this is an event movie. You can't just like watch this by yourself. Like, and that's what I really appreciate about The Room because while like you have other great films, say like something by Darren Aronofsky, his films are tough to watch as a group, like The Wrestler, Requiem for a Dream, like Black Swan. Like they're good, they're awesome films, but they're movies that you just watch by yourselves because like it's not a great communal experience in the sense of like you can have a good time and just chill out with some popcorn. It's a serious picture that like you want to like pay attention, give it the respect, and you can have a conversation about it like this. But but it's not like it's just tough in terms of like a theatrical experience when you're trying to go out and have a good time with friends. I just feel like that's like a director like that. It's not that kind of director. Where like even like Tarantino, that's you can have a communal experience with that. But what I love about The Room, it feels like the perfect movie to be able to like have like a good bonding experience with friends because there's a lot of what the fuck moments and then a lot of like
It's a completely different experience every single time that you watch it
it
with
really
screen.
is. It
It,
really
it
is.
it it never gets old. Every time I've heard, or like every time I meet somebody and they haven't seen The Room, if they're not scared off of a friendship or dating me at that point, I'm like, we got to watch it like right now.
Shit.
It's so funny. One of the, or actually the last time that I had a legitimate social gathering before the pandemic struck was March 8th. That night, I gathered a bunch of friends over who had never seen this movie, and that's what we watched. That and Sharknado. And that was the last,
Oh,
like, and it was so funny because my it's not funny, but it's significant because my the people that I sort of they lived above me, and those were the only other people in my complex. They had just moved out and they were going to be replaced with people like the following week. So this whole weekend I had just to myself. So we grabbed a bunch of beers and we were just as loud as humanly possible. We had such a fun time, and what a way to close out normality, you know?
Jesus. Um,
Yeah.
but oh god, like because I'm like relishing that because like I want that so bad right now. But like
I
cinemas here are like start like maybe finally opening. Like I saw some cinemas posting like, okay, we're almost ready to reopen. Just like after like 8 months of being here, after 8 months of being closed, finally they're about to reopen. But
good.
so like I'll try to figure out a way to maybe get a room screening. I'll figure it out. But
Yeah.
next I want to
You're
go into
American.
yeah, exactly. So next
Yeah.
thing I want to go into, go ahead.
Sorry, before we get into
Yeah,
that, I just wanted to bring up something that you said prior.
yeah.
Um, I think, and I don't know how much other filmmakers consider this, but something that's super duper hard to master, even if you're like the best filmmaker of all time, like you were talking about, like Black Swan and all these movies that don't necessarily have a lot of rewatchability. I don't know how much filmmakers consider this, but it is really hard to master like the virality of a film and the rewatchability of a film. Like take School of Rock. I love using this as an example. It's not a bad movie, but it's also not like Oscar winning. You know what I mean? It's like this weird middle ground where I don't even know. Like, would you call this a B movie? It's like it's a movie that you watch as a kid that has insane rewatchability. You mentioned School of Rock to people who've seen it before, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we got to watch that right now. Put it on."
Yeah,
Like even as background noise, you know?
like it is a really good movie, and I like that the plot is simple. Like it's a very simple plot, and like it's deliberately kind of cheesy in its own way, but it's well executed. And you have to credit the writer. I can't remember his name right now, but he was the guy that played Ned in the movie. I think his name's Mike. I can't remember,
Oh,
but he was the writer of the screenplay and the director, great director Richard Linklater. And he actually
right.
originally didn't want to write. Yeah, he actually didn't want to direct it. At first, he didn't want to. Like he passed on it, but the producer Scott Rudin is just no. You're gonna do this. And honestly, I will just give them credit because while it is kind of like, yeah, that kind of like summer kind of kids, like sort of like kids teenage movie, it kind of taught a lot about rebellion. And like,
Mhm.
cause I appreciate the themes of it, but again, it's just one of those films that like, it's just a fun movie to watch. And like Jack Black, just total scene stealer, complete scene stealer in that
Yeah,
movie.
absolutely, without a doubt. And like that's something that I really feel like The Room has. As much as people ridicule it for being like the Citizen Kane of bad movies and all this other stuff, you have to admit one thing that it does phenomenally well is its insane rewatchability.
Mhm.
You know, I this is nowhere near my favorite movie of all time, but I think if you ask anybody close to me, you included probably, if you had to say what's Max's favorite movie, that's probably the one that you would go to. Because first off, having a favorite movie is fucking hard. But that's definitely the movie that I've seen the most in my entire life. And I'm 24. I just discovered this film like 2017. What is that, like 4 years
4 years
ago?
ago.
Yeah. So, and I've already seen it like more than 50 times, maybe even 100. So,
Geez. Yeah, I think it's in my top 250. Like I have my list. Like this film is in my top 250 just because
top 250. Holy shit.
like I don't have my list ranked necessarily, but it's kind of crazy when you see The Room 2003, then you see something like Goodfellas 1990, Citizen Kane 1941, 12 Angry Men 1957. But and you
Mm.
just see like The Room, all of this cluster, you're just like, what? But again, like it's one of those things I have to credit the rewatchability and like the experience that it brings. So it's just that crazy. It's just crazy how like it in a weird way, it is a masterpiece in a weird way. Like I like it's by no means a technical masterpiece, but in terms of like the experience it brings, like yeah, like it's got to be up there. It's something to watch. It's like I have to recommend it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right,
So
what's the next thing you wanted to talk about? Sorry I interrupted you.
no, you're totally good. But like, so this is interesting. Like, so I think there's not many movies that where they also have a movie about the behind the scenes of the movie.
Yep.
Like, well, in terms of like they actually make like a full on documentary, like even like a feature film. And this is one of the rare times you had like, the book, The Disaster Artist, based off like the behind the scenes of The Room, and then they made the movie about it. And it's just rare that you kind of get a feature film that's about the behind the scenes of of another feature film.
Yep.
So, for I think one of the things I wanted to discuss was just some of like what I do appreciate about the film is just some of the missteps that The Room had. The Disaster Artist kind of like perfected it. So there's one
Mhm.
scene I like to point out in The Disaster Artist where I think it was when Tommy Wiseau was explaining to Greg Sestero like, oh, I want you to shave your beard. It's a big metaphor. And like it made no sense in the movie. He just like showed up in the room in his tux, no beard. You're just like, all right. I mean, this makes no sense, but but it's there.
Characters in the movie made a huge deal out of it. Like it was like this big game-changing event. Yes.
But in the movie The Disaster Artist, they kind of added that weight. They added that stakes to it because when they're trying to explain like, oh, it's a symbolic meaning, and like Tommy Wiseau had no idea like how to really do it for his movie, but James Franco and Dave Franco in the movie, like they made it have stakes, like because Dave Franco, Greg Sestero, he had a potential part to be in a Bryan Cranston role of movie, but he needed the beard. And then the fact that he had to shave it was just kind of like that was the moment where he like really resented Tommy. So like that's and then it's also like a nice act break because that was the transition going into the third act of the film. where like there's that real resentment going on. So that's where like when you're talking about trying to create a symbolic gesture of like him shaving the beard, that's what I'm talking about. Just adding that emotional stakes to a character by just like, when you're doing this beard, like how personal it is to him. Well, it's an opportunity for a big role. And the fact that that beard is now being shaven off just shows the resentment that he has towards Tommy. So I'm like, that's how you execute symbolism for a beard, not just show up for some random scene. Just like, okay, now we're gonna throw a football.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's never explained why they're in tux at all. Like, is it?
I'm trying to remember in the book, but like, wasn't it like they're trying on like like I thought it was like for like some sort of Tommy's wedding. They're trying to like just get in suits ahead of time. I don't really know. I can't remember. I think it was explained in the book, but I haven't read the book maybe about 4 years.
No, fair enough. I've read the book twice. I don't remember if Greg went into detail about why, but that is probably my guess. My best guess as well is like they're just trying the tux on before the wedding. That never happens, of course. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, but like there's also another thing that I want to point out with it, and I think we've both experienced this is when when Tommy, like in the film or in the book where Tommy presents the script to the room to Greg, we've both had that feeling where like it's total garbage, but like we don't know how to like be a nice person to kind of like really critique it or tell them to start over. Like we try to give like good criticism critiques, but sometimes it's so difficult to just be open. Yep. And I could definitely feel like Greg Sestero kind of felt the same way.
Yeah, a little bit. And like sometimes I hate admitting this, but maybe you'll speak to it as well. Some scripts I feel like are just so far gone that I just can't give feedback. Like I don't know. Is that a dick thing to say? Probably. But I just sometimes I'm like, or I just don't have the mental energy to like process the script that's in front of me. So I'm just like, wow, good job. Like this is phenomenal, or some bullshit. Like to reference our last talk, that whole like thing in Rick and Morty with the screenplay, and he's just like, do you have any notes, thoughts? And Morty just goes, nope, I just enjoyed it, please write more. Like that's kind of
I can take anything. I really want to improve my writing.
Get out. But yeah, like that's probably how Greg felt in that moment. He's kind of just like, wow, this is a script, probably, right?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna say the name of the film, and I'm not gonna say the director, but I definitely felt that way with one film that we were both part of. Like, and honestly, and I feel like it is our room to some degree. Like, I don't mean to sound mean, but like I did feel like it was a similar experience. And the way like I've kind of viewed it since then, I've gotten much better about like my feelings about it have toned down, but I do think about it as like, okay, this is like my room experience.
A little bit, yeah.
But it's just because I felt very similarly probably when I read the script with like Greg Sestero, but even then like when we're there for like a table read and like we're trying to give notes, I don't think the notes are really getting through, and then like but honestly at least it got made. That's all you could really ask for. It got made, and like honestly like I don't necessarily show it to people unless like I really know you. I don't think I've ever gone on my way to show it to people. I think it was just like to you and like maybe like one or the two close people. Well, like of course like who Nick and Mark.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, I mean like they get to see pretty much everything we make.
Exactly.
No, yeah, like normally my family is like super duper supportive and like, oh, let's see the new movie. And they probably were interested in seeing it at one point, but I just never showed it to them. This is probably one of the very few projects that I worked on that they've never seen before. And that's really saying something, but I don't know. We have our quarrels with it. We've made our peace. It's, out in the world, and we're just never going to have to deal with that again.
Yeah,
So
I mean, again, it's a learning experience, and I think it kind of brought us to like kind of go into it with expectations. We need to know exactly what our roles are specifically,
yes.
and to be honest, I feel like it's very reminiscent again of working on the room because did you know that they hired like they had three different cinematographers for this film,
Oh
and
yeah.
like and even like the third cinematographer, he was just like I think one of the camera operators, and then it was just kind of brought on like so again,
Oh,
I
you
think
can
it's
go deeper than that. Like people, I think, what is it? People are credited as executive producers who, like, Tommy hasn't talked to in years, and one of them I think is dead. Like, was dead by the time the room, like before the room even started production, which makes no sense. But okay. Um. Anyways, segueing back into the room, what's your next bullet point there?
So I think my next point was so kind I think it's just I think so this is what so now I I just lost my train of thought, but like but I
Just
think
thinking about our room.
our room, yeah, no, it's one of those things like because I think it was just one of those things like just trying to be prepared for like being for each film, just knowing exactly what your role is, and you have to have that outline. Okay, but it just came back to me. So we've even mentioned the idea that like he had to replace his crew multiple times, and we
Mhm.
haven't even brought up the idea of the stupidity of him shooting in both film and and digital
Yes.
simultaneously.
Yes.
Makes
Yes.
zero sense. Well, like
So,
go for it.
well, okay. So let's start with digital and film for a sec here. Um, I think it's really interesting that this happened to be like, I don't know, like work with me here. Maybe you can kind of help me out on the timeline. But this was like right as the digital revolution was about to overtake um traditional film. And
Mhm.
then, you got like digital media being shot and then trying to be replicated into looking like it was shot on film, which I think is funny in and of itself. But the fact that Tommy was like right there in the middle and he was like, yes, we're shooting digital and like it makes zero sense, and it's perfectly outlined in the Disaster Artist. Like, they're lit differently, yada yada. Like it just, you just can't do it. And he said, no, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway.
It just
Fucking weird.
Well, like you also just doubled your budget. Like whatever like you need for camera equipment, okay, you just doubled it because you also need those sets of lenses, you need the rigs for it. You have to build the rig to simultaneously use both. Like you have to it's just it's crazy. And I'm like
Tommy
and
Wiseau is not hurting for money though.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's some sort of money laundering, right? What did he just so like part of the mystique I think of Tommy Wiseau was like, wasn't he like so wasn't he like just some sort of like street seller and then eventually started selling clothes and then that might be his source of money? It was something strange like that. That's what I heard. Like
The
because
Disaster Artist outlines exactly what you just talked about. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the full story. It probably isn't. I don't know if you know this, but like the Disaster Artist, there was a documentary that was supposed to come out, and I think it's still waiting for distribution deals or something like that. I don't know. But it was supposed to come out back in like before the Disaster Artist, I think. Like they started production a while ago. It's called Room Full of Spoons, and it perfectly outlines Tommy Wiseau's like entire life. Like they found everything out about him, and he sued the living shit out of these people, trying to get them to not publish it. And the court actually ruled in favor of the people that made the documentary. So I don't know when it's going to come out, but production was delayed because of the lawsuit. So I don't know, but best believe when it comes out, I would like to watch it.
Same.
Maybe not towards Tommy's. Uh, what is it like? Tommy probably wouldn't want that, but I don't know. I'm super curious, and I really want to know where he made his money.
Yeah, and I think it's also like I think he is a very private person, but it's also like it kind of adds to his allure. Like he is an enigma sort of
For
character,
sure.
so I think that kind of what makes him even more like like interesting to watch. It's just like he looks weird, he sounds weird, and then like he's kind of this enigma. Is the thing.
Mhm.
So one thing I wanted to point out about this, so I've been thinking about like films that maybe have like that kind of spirit of like, the failed artist trying to make a masterpiece or just trying to make a film or like a great piece of art. And while it wasn't my intention, I ended up watching a film this week that perfectly fit the spirit of The Room. Not in the sense of, or like The Disaster Artist.
Really?
Have you ever heard of the documentary called Exit Through the Gift Shop? It's directed by Banksy. Banksy, the street artist.
Nope.
Okay, so like Banksy, probably one of the one of the best living artists we have today. Probably the highest paid living artist now that we think about it. Now that I think about it, but like
Okay.
his art goes for millions of dollars, sort of deal. Great, great person. And he directed this film that was supposed to like highlight kind of the uprise of like a street art, like graffiti, like actual kind of praising it as like high art, but it actually turned out to be about like this guy who's actually recording them, like a bunch of like various street artists around the world. He ended up recording ended up just being some guy just ended up recording these great street artists, and ended up just being such a weird, quirky guy. And then and the movie ended up becoming about like, okay, maybe like he tried making a film about that, like the guy in the movie, not Banksy, but this guy that ended up making the movie about. He ended up being like this weird character, sort of like Tommy. And then when he made this film, it just was totally indigestible, made no sense. And it was to the point where Banksy, like, this guy is crazy. Like, I don't know why, like, we decided to partner up with him. But Banksy was just like, well, why don't you go and like you saw a lot of street art? Why don't you go make street art? Go make art. And but Banksy really just wanted the tapes, the videotapes that of this guy making all this great street art of like all these video taggers, because he's still trying to like bring street art and graffiti as like a high art, or at least like the respect that I think it deserves. And this guy like, okay, so he holds this big exhibition and becomes like Tommy Wiseau sort of famous. Like his art's completely like, look it up. His name's like Mr. Brainwash is his tag name. But and Banksy was just like, what did I do? I created this I created this crazy guy. But again, it deals with that idea that like like this kind of like sort of like unskilled, untechnical artist who just decided to go out and make stuff. And like while you appreciate that, it's also like the artists around you are just kind of critiquing it. I'm just like, he's not like, people are appreciating it, but it's just like it's not very like fleshed out and like, or like very like like a groomed artist. And another film that I have to think about that again in the same spirit of The Room is Ed Wood. Have you ever seen Plan 9 from Outer Space?
I have not yet, but it is on my list.
Oh, so good, so good. And check out Ed Wood if we ever have a chance. I mean, I think that's honestly Tim Burton's best movie in my opinion.
I will. I will.
Yeah, yeah. But completely black and white. And then Ed D. Wood Jr., hilarious guy. Glenn Glenda's great. And then Plan 9. I think Plan 9's got to be on YouTube. Like, you got to check it out. Again, a great kind of, yeah. But like, I like thinking about that. Just like the failed artist just trying to like just make shit. I mean, it's crazy to think about, because I like, while I appreciate the attempt, it's just sometimes they're just shooting for the stars too quick, if that makes sense, or like they're obsessed with success. They just like, they'll just rush to it and not like slowly like kind of find their style or like hone the craft. And I think that's like the struggle that like some of them just like some artists don't understand, or some people that are creating.
Well, yeah, and to kind of build on that, I was watching an interview with James Franco, and he said that he connected to Tommy's story in that way of like not really knowing like how to connect with an audience, but also not being understood the way that you want to, or having things go the way that you want to. Like he's made projects before that he thought were like fantastic and they bombed. And then you had the other side where he's like, yeah, this movie's kind of shit. And then it does super well. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, what am I doing right here? What am I doing wrong here? I'm just frustrated. Like imagine like pouring your heart and soul into something and people don't care, and it's just like, all right, whatever, I'll just try again on the next one, and then you produce fucking garbage, and then that's what gets like views. Like screw that. So I kind of understand where both of them are coming from, and that's kind of why he chose to take on the project, or at least one of the many reasons. So I just thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's just like because it really sometimes like you can have great movies, but like sometimes it just if you're gonna judge it by audience response or like box office, like it depends how you're viewing it because you could look at Shawshank Redemption as either like one of the greatest successes in film or one of the greatest failures, considering it was such a box office disaster. So, but but like it had like an amazing like following it, but again, I think it just was one of those things at the time. But honestly, I totally feel for Franco. And I think it's also like the idea maybe of trying to execute a vision. Because while like the room is crazy in its way, I feel like in a weird way, it also executed its vision well, or at least what Tommy thought was his vision.
Yeah, and I know that the Disaster Artist sort of outlines this, the book, I mean, but I forget how it actually gained its original traction because the what was it, the debut screening, it was just like cast and crew, and then it was like ultimately forgotten about for a decent amount of time until what is it, some like LA film students found it because Tommy like paid the theater to keep it running even though no one was seeing it. And so I don't know, like it's just the concept of virality to me is just so interesting but foreign. Like I don't understand it. Like like with memes, like this makes me sound like I'm 35. Like yes, I get meme virality, but like something could get posted on Reddit and then just all of a sudden like it gets to the front page and then everyone is seeing it, and then it migrates to all the platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, like, and everyone's making memes of it, and all of a sudden it's just like commonplace, and then it's just like a joke that everyone knows. So Tommy really found success by just making something and then I guess getting lucky that somebody found it. Like, could you imagine if it just stopped playing in the theater and then no one ever saw it? Can you imagine all the masterpieces that just didn't gain the right traction like The Room did?
I mean, like it's unfortunately a common tale because there are probably great movies that have been made in life that we've just never seen before or just are lost. And
Yeah.
again, I think it's just one of those things like Tommy, yeah, he got lucky, but he also had the means, like the financial means to be able to like kind of push people to go see it. So it just it's kind of like, like I feel like I feel like maybe it could have still been like successful, like even regardless of those two students. I mean, like definitely helped with the virality of it, but like maybe aside from that, maybe like other people down the line would have probably done the same thing. They probably would have gotten a similar response. So, but it definitely does seem he got in that window right at the like he just had really good timing, just like and but it's still crazy to think like that movie with that character. So I think we're kind of approaching our time, but like you gotta tell me. So tell me about meeting Tommy Wiseau. You gotta tell me about this.
Oh, yes. Here we go. So, all right. So I get to the venue, right? This is in New York City. And I think I literally just walked in and there was just this massive line. And I was like, oh, here we go. Like I already knew because they was advertised like Tommy Wiseau in person, right? So like obviously I knew. And there he was. Like I was just like in line was moving pretty fast. People were getting pictures with him. I saw him from the back and I was like, no other man that I've ever seen has long black hair, a weird like not sweater vest. I don't know. Yeah,
Just
some
like
like
a dress shirt,
look like
vest, and a
weird ass,
tie.
yeah, dress shirt, vest with a tie. He had like these gloves on, shades, and obviously his like massive fucking like 16 belts, and his pants were probably still sagging, or just not the right size or something. And like it's outlined in the book, he did look like he had not slept in like 14 days, because he was moving very sluggishly, and it was fucking hilarious. So I get to the front of the line and I was like ecstatic, but I kind of held my starstruckness in. I shook his hand. By the way, biggest dead fish handshake I've ever fucking had in my life. Did not put any effort into it. It was like shaking hands with a ghost.
No
Or
pun.
yeah, it was like shaking hands with a corpse. Um, and I didn't see his eyes at all. Like the shades were like way too dark, but I was okay. So there was like an usher kind of like showing people like when they could, come and go and like meet Tommy and whatever. So when it was my turn, he like, ushered me in and then took my phone to like so that he could get like pictures of me and Tommy together. So if you look on my Instagram, I do actually have pictures with the man himself. Um, and it's funny, I had a few things in my hand. I had the Room DVD that I just purchased at the merch store. I had a headshot, and I had my fake Room poster that I had made, of my old Halloween costume of me being Tommy. And I dropped that, as I was giving the phone to the usher, and I bent over to pick it up, and lo and behold, Mr. Tommy Wiseau himself got to it first, handed it back to me, and goes, "Oh, you're clumsy." And I thought it was so funny. He did the laugh for me. I was just like, wow. Like the laugh is real, dude. 100% confirmed. That laugh is how he actually laughs. And so he's a great guy. He's a great guy. He takes the picture with me and everything. And then even after the movie, he still has a meet and greet going on. Like he has a second meet and greet after the movie ends. So you meet him the first time, you go see the movie, and he has a meet and greet after. Oh, and also he's a Q&A before the movie starts. Fucking amazing, right? So it's like 3 a.m. at this point. Everyone's like ready to go home, but like, people are still taking pictures and whatever. And I went up to him the second time and I was just like, business card in hand. I gave it to him and I said, "Tommy, listen, my normal game is editing. If you need help with anything, just give me a call. I would love to help you out." And this is what he said to me. He said, "Okay, you editor, right? I'm working on this film Big Shark. You do CGI?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I can. I've done like After Effects here and there." He's like, "Okay, you send CGI reel to room.com, blah, 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 like email or something like that." I never actually sent it because I'm not a CGI artist, but like, holy shit. Like he took it and everything. It's probably sitting in his apartment somewhere with like, a massive pile of other business cards and scripts probably given him. Yeah. So, my one chance at fame, if only I was a little better at CGI.
Yeah. But like again, you're honing your craft right now. And even then,
Yeah.
like, and like editing's your game. Like, editing I feel like it's more rhythm and pace. CGI is just like you're like a visual effects artist or like a visual
What's
artist.
funny is I feel like Tommy is the type of person where if I sent him just like one of my short films, even if it wasn't CGI rich or anything, he would probably still watch it and then remember it like 10 years later. Like if I saw him again 10 years later, I'd be like, "Oh, I made that one short." He'd be like, "Oh yeah, I see that. It's pretty good, but you screw up right here, you see?" Some shit like that. I do plan to meet him again the next time that he has a screening. He's doing in-person screenings again. The next time that he has one in New York, best believe I'm going to be first in line. So
Jeez. All right.
Super friendly guy.
Yeah, and honestly, kudos to him. I mean, like, good for him because honestly, like, there is a part of me like I am curious what he is like day to day, but the fact that he's willing to do that for fans because that's like that seems like a 5-6 hour thing just to do like each screening. Like you've got to be there
Yep.
for the meet and greet at the beginning, Q&A, then you have the actual movie. I don't know if he sits in and watches it. That's 2 hours just for the movie, and you're talking about an hour each for meet and greet and Q&A.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't know if he watches the movie every time. I don't know if he does. I would love to know though. But I'm sure that what helps him the most is like 36 Red Bulls or whatever, because I think the Disaster Artist book like made a huge note of that as how he like drank like 6 Red Bulls before even showing up on set or something like that. Insane. I don't know how he's still.
Oh, so one note that I just remembered. So like again, a little fun fact about the room, and I'm sure you already know this already. So like the script supervisor, I think his name was Sandy. I can't remember his last name. He actually
Sandy Sinclair or something, or some shit like that.
Yeah, like whoever Seth Rogen played in the movie. But but it was so I think there was like a time where he was just like had like a public argument. I don't think there was a lawsuit or anything, but there was like a argument that he made in public saying I should be credited as the director of the room. I think he was making that argument because he was kind of like supervising the entire he was supervising the production to the point where like he was essentially directing. And it's kind of interesting just because it's kind of like I heard somebody make this comparison. I can't remember who, but like it's kind of like you're trying to get credit for making the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I just think it's so funny, and obviously, like like Greg tried to get away from it for a while, and then he wrote The Disaster Artist. Juliette Danielle, the person that played Lisa, like she tried to get away from it for like 10 plus years or something. She was like in hiding. She had never done an acting gig like after the room, I think. Don't quote me on that. Maybe she did. But yeah, she like just did not associate with any of it until like maybe 12 years later or something like that.
I honestly, I kind of get that because it is a film that like you didn't think it would have that level of impact, and and I think going in, they knew what kind of movie they were going to make. They knew it was not going to be a good film, but it was an opportunity for them to kind of practice the craft and get paid for it. So like, okay, let's just have a good time making something. But they knew that they knew it was going to be a bad movie, or okay, a bad movie. I'll put in quotes.
But, well, they genuinely, I mean, I don't think anyone expected it to explode. I think because like in the Disaster Artist movie, like I think Sandy says it at least twice, like, oh, at least nobody will ever see this or something like that. Like poorly aged things right there.
Well, and here's the thing, in a weird way, the room is going to be oddly timeless. That's going to be the crazy thing. It's just like, I think in a weird way, it's going to be timeless.
Yep.
Because it's almost been 20 years since it was made, and it still holds up. If that makes sense.
So it's funny that you bring up the 20-year anniversary in 2023. Like, is he going to do something? I'm genuinely curious to know like what the 20th anniversary of the room is going to look like. Maybe he'll do like a big screening in LA or something like that. I would be so down to go to that. Anyways. Yeah, like all of the room cast members, like, okay, I don't know if you know this, Robin Paris, the person that played Michelle, like the very forgettable Michelle character, apparently a very sweet person in real life. Never met her. I do plan to someday. I don't know. I would love to meet like Greg and Juliet and Philip Haldeman, who played Denny. She made like a whole like spin-off of like the room cast members like being broken homeless and in these weird situations and shit. I can't remember what it's called. Into the Room or some shit like that.
Is it like an actual like narrative, or is it just like this kind of like a bit of a mockumentary sort of deal?
It's a mockumentary, exactly. Yeah. So it's a
Gotcha.
mockumentary about the Room cast members after the Room. Um, and it actually stars like a bunch of them. I think the only two people that aren't in it are Greg and Tommy. But everyone else is in it, and Robin Paris is the one that like orchestrated the whole thing. I think it's on YouTube actually. It's like a series on YouTube. You can find it on her channel. And Philip Haldeman, again, who played Denny, actually made a comic book about his experience in
Ooh,
LA and on the Room.
I think you have one of those, right?
I
Did you
do, yeah.
finish?
I have the
Yeah.
first one, and it's signed by Philip himself. I meant to get the others. I think it was in the height of the pandemic, so like a bunch of things were happening, and then a bunch of things weren't happening. So I think my mind was in like 1,000 different places at once. But yes, I've read the first issue, loved it. I'll probably reread it before ordering the rest of them, but that was my intention, was to like buy the rest of them.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's really cool to see all of their perspectives on it
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like, you just have to kind of appreciate it. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, it's kind of crazy that, like, because I am curious that, like, I'm sure there is a part of them that, like, they appreciate the fame, but, like, I think there's a part of them, like, they also, like, I wouldn't even necessarily say fame. I mean, like, maybe it just gives them a bigger platform to be able to kind of show their art. But I would also say, like, I think they just have this kind of weird mixed bag with it. Like, yes, like, I'm happy that I made it just because, like, I was able to make something. But you also, like, I think, as like, if you want to be an artist, you also want to make work that you respect or be a part of projects that you respect. And even Sestero was just like, even though, yes, I want to make stuff like Inception, like work I respect, you just have to kind of appreciate the twists and turns that kind of happen. So, and I feel like the Room is just like, while it wasn't like necessarily like what I had in mind for like in a career, it's just like, that's kind of like the fun of life, is just kind of like doing that kind of little wacky things and just kind of doing something that's unexpected, especially especially with that film, with with a guy like that. So you just have to kind of
Exactly.
appreciate it. Yeah.
And I will say this, two things. One, if any of my films ever obtain a cult following because of how shitty the movie is, I will probably be offended and humbled at the same time
Hmm.
and accept it with open arms eventually.
Yeah.
But it's kind of just like, imagine Our Room that we were discussing earlier. Imagine if that was the thing people knew you for. Oh, Joey Mezzatesta that worked on unnamed film? Like, that's crazy.
I
Are you
I would be I well, like, I would be biting my like, I would be, like, biting a little bit just because I think, like, I feel like I'm just less connected with it for story, like, because I think just I'm still working on it. Like, I'm just at a point where I wanna get better on a technical level,
Mhm.
and that's just, like, one where, like, it was no prep. I didn't know what I was doing, and, like, it's just, like, I'm just, like, biting my tongue, like, "Ah," like, I want it to be better, but, like, but you learn and move on. But it's one of those films, like, when you're in film school, like, you make your film, you get it shown, but you don't use it to kind of be like, okay, let's shoot for the stars. Like, no, like, let's just, like, you kind of want to, like, build, like, hone your craft, like slow stepping stones to slowly start building it up. And that's what I thought that film would be, at least in terms of, like, trying to get better. But the fact that, like, it's on Amazon, I'm like, okay, not again. So, like,
Oh,
I'm just, I mean, but, like, it's made at the end of the day. So, like, it's there. If I ever want a
I'm
good
just
laugh.
saying, like, I feel like it would be very frustrating for everyone that worked on it if that was the film that they were remembered for,
Mhm.
you know? Like, I don't know. Like, I would still welcome it. I feel like any publicity on a film can be good, even if the film is atrocious. But it's still going to be a little like, wow, you guys really like that film that I worked on like 7 years ago. Like, why? Like, I have so many other good ones, like, here's, like, pick and choose. Don't look at this one. Like, what are you doing? you know
Mhm.
so
Yeah, I mean, well, again, like, success in a weird way, like, while it can be calculated, it's also like it also feels random at the same time.
right.
All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up here, man. But like always, always great talk. Dude, seriously, check. Like, of course, I know you're gonna probably add it to your list, and you'll probably watch it a few years later. But like, check out Exit Through the Gift Shop and Ed Wood, both like Oscar-nominated movies. And then look up Banksy. Like, just look up his Instagram, Banksy, Banksy. Like, he's the ultimate, like, probably one of the most ultimate artists I think of all time. Like, just like he's also like super sophisticated, but also like one of the greatest trolls. And he's also like, from what I understand, a pretty humble guy at the same time.
I do like troll art.
So
I
like
feel
that's
like I've heard of Banksy before, but I just never like looked into it, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, like
Anyways,
I get lost in his stuff, but like, but yeah, definitely, definitely an interesting guy, or person, whatever. He's total enigma, like Tommy.
mhm.
All right, man. Well, take it easy, dude. Good luck with everything. Thanks
Thanks,
again.
man. You too. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, of course. Till next time. All right. Cheers.
All right.